All right, everyone. Just want to welcome you to the channel. If you've never watched before, I'm a new DCS player, very much a rookie at this point. I've been playing for about a month. I have about 80, I think it's 86 hours in DCS in about a month because I've been extremely hooked on it. And as you can see from the footage that's being shown, um, I haven't mastered the art of the cinematic cameras that you see so many people creating trailers in DCS, but I do have some pretty good shots to show off and some really cool action to show off, kind of like this one right here, where I catch this guy with a uh, with a 120C. So I just wanted to talk about my thoughts as somebody who came from Microsft Flight Simulator, as well as other sims back in the 90s and such. I haven't played a lot of sims between the early 2000s and 2020 when Flight Simulator 2020 came out. I have played some, but not a lot. I kind of stepped away from Flight Simulator for years and years and years, and I kind of intentionally avoided DCS um, for the last several years, mostly because I knew it was a time sink. I knew it would take all of my time and all of my attention if I got into DCS. So I found myself just avoiding it. I used to play a lot of Arma 3. I know how engrossing that can be if you get into like the co-op milsim missions and all that stuff. And I used to do some of that stuff, and DCS was always kind of intimidating because I knew it was similar as far as if you wanted to be even remotely okay at it, you had to sink a lot of time in it. But as a casual, I am a casual. I'm not some sweaty pilot who, goes to a server and is looking to get 40 kills and wipe the floor with everybody, and that's just not the kind of pilot that I am. But as a casual coming from Flight Sim where you fly the friendly skies, I am learning about combat and learning different aircraft. I currently have 3 aircraft in DCS. I have the P-47D, the F-18C Hornet, and the AH-64D Apache. And I haven't, the modules for DCS are expensive, and a lot of people think they're too expensive. But I will say I do not feel cheated with any of those 3 modules. They are of extremely high quality. Um, the detail is pretty amazing. Um, it makes you realize what flight sims could be in another 10 or 15 or 20 years, because even what they've managed to accomplish with what's available today, both visually, uh, controls wise, physics wise, all the things that they've managed to do with DCS is really pretty incredible. Coming from Flight Simulator, the models are much harder to fly. Now, most of the flight models in Flight Sim are civilian planes. They're, you know, casual planes. Those planes are designed and meant to be as easy to fly as possible. Whereas these aircraft in DCS, they're combat aircraft, so they're designed to be cutting edge and to perform at maximum performance at all times. They're always at their peak, but because of that, they are kind of also always on the edge. You're seeing footage right now of me flying the Apache, and the Apache is an amazing aircraft, but it is probably the hardest thing to fly I've ever flown in a flight sim. It just learning how to take off without crashing, because it is so touchy when you start to take off, and it took me quite a while to figure it out and to figure out how to take off consistently every time without dying or at least tearing up the Apache. But now that I know how to do it, having a blast flying it. It is a ton of fun. I could be further along in DCS if I had just picked one module and focused heavily on that module. My first module was the F-18. If I had sunk all of my time into the F-18, by this time I would be a lot more proficient with it than I am currently. Um, it's it's more fun for me though to uh, do three different disciplines. You know, I love the World War II flight era. Those times were crazy. Those pilots were insane. Those guys that did that in real life, and flying those World War II planes is just incredible. And I had to have one of those, and I had to have a helicopter because I love flying helicopters. I used to fly helicopters in Arma 3 all the time, which is a much simpler flight model. It's very simple compared to DCS, but I used to love flying choppers in Arma as well as other games like Battlefield and things like that. And then the jets, the fighter jets, you know, I come from way back in like the 90s playing Falcon 4.0 and some of the older uh, flight sims that were focused on fighter jets. And I've flown them, you know, in everything since then. You know, fighter jets in GTA 5 all the way up to Microsft Flight Simulator. And so I thought I had a pretty good idea of what I was getting into, but when I got into the cockpit of the F-18 and DCS and realized every single switch and button and knob does something and I don't know what any of them do, it was kind of a moment of awakening, like wow, I'm really pretty heavily in over my head here. So you're seeing some footage now of the SPQR server. Yeah, I've already joined a squadron. SPQR is a group of guys who are pretty heavy into DCS, and they do competitive competition, or competitive competitions. They do competitions against other squadrons and stuff, and they're very good. I'm nowhere near good enough to do any of that stuff, but I'm having fun just flying with those guys. This is one of the guys from the squadron flying with George in the Apache, but I have flown the Apache with him as my CPG, and that has been some of the coolest experiences I've ever had in any game or sim or anything. Having a gunner in one seat and the pilot in the other seat, and you have to work in tandem to take out targets and try to stay alive, and it's a lot of fun. So I've had a ton of fun doing that so far. With the Apache doing so, I've had a couple different guys run CPG for me so that they were in the gunner seat, and it's a ton of fun. And then, you know, getting back to what I was saying, you know, the fighter jets, I can fly the jets. That's the easy part. Actually, once you get in the air, the hands-on stick flight movements and flight controls, if you've flown a lot in Flight Simulator or other simulators, those things are all going to be familiar. Yes, they're a little more touchy. They're a little more moody, I guess. A little harder, and a little more realistic. There are penalties for doing things you can get away with in other games and in flight sims, but the results are pretty incredible once you learn what you can and can't get away with. And, you know, you feel like you're flying the most realistic jet that you've ever flown in any sim, and because you are, DCS is on a whole other level. It's incredible. So, you know, my review so far, now I'm only 86 hours in, and 86 hours for something like DCS is a drop in the bucket. It's really nothing. It's probably too soon to do any kind of actual review, but it's just to give an idea of if you were thinking of coming from Microsft Flight Simulator to DCS. Personally, I would say absolutely do it, but go into it knowing that a lot of what you already know isn't going down here. It is a much different simulator. It is much more difficult, and the modules are much more complex than they are in Flight Flight Sim. That being said, it is super, super rewarding. It is a ton of fun. I've had so much fun in this sim. I can already see where it has sucked me in, and it's probably going to take all of my money and all of my time. But it's really incredible. Really incredible. The detail and quality of the modules. Like I said, paying the high prices that a lot of people complain about with DCS, you feel like you're getting your money's worth because there's no other sim. I do sim racing. There's no car that I've ever experienced in a sim racing title that had the level of work and detail and attention put into it that these aircraft do in DCS. So there's nothing like that in sim racing that takes it to that granular level. So the quality is there. There's no doubt about that. So I want to leave you guys with some footage. I got a pretty good shot here of one of the guys from the squadron. Now you saw the Apache shooting flares and diving down low. That's because he was being pursued by another player in, I can't remember what kind of jet. I think it was a JF-17, but I'm not positive about that. But there was a jet engaging him. So he was dodging the missile from the jet and getting low and shooting flares to try to dodge that missile. And this was happening at the same time. So this is his wingman, the guy in the Apache. This is his teammate, and he's hunting the guy who's hunting the Apache. So the Apache lived. He escaped, and he survived. I think another jet was shot down right here. Another fighter jet was shot down about this same time. But you see this guy here, he starts tracking this jet as the jet's coming in low trying to get a shot on the Apache. He's tracking him, providing cover fire, and he gets him with a close range, I think it was a Sidewinder missile, and you see the good hit right there. And that's just a little tiny appetizer of what DCS is all about. I hope you guys enjoyed this little sneak peek short review thing, and thanks a lot for watching.